Right, how's it going, guys? So I see this story yesterday about Priti Patel and what she plans to do with asylum seekers that are coming over the channel. As you know, they are currently putting them all around the UK in various hotels and now army bases. Well, her new plan included sending them to the Outer Hebrides, which is obviously just nonsensical, but I do kind of agree with getting them out of the UK. But obviously with the caveat that it cannot be affecting other people's lives, with the island they plan to use actually hosting 1,000 odd citizens as it stands, so they would become the minority in very short order once we started sending them there. Now, since this was reported, there has been some updates to it, including their plans to possibly send them to the Isle of Wight or Isle of Man, along with some small islands in Scotland, which is obviously going to go damn well with Nicola Fishlip sturgeon. So let's take a quick look at the Sun article that came out last night and was updated at 9:30 this morning. It headlines, Migrant Island Plan, asylum seekers could be housed in Outer Hebrides to deal with surge in migrant channel crossings. Other offshore locations being considered for new asylum processing centres include the Isle of Wight and the Isle of Man, government sources have said. Which is just fucking lunacy. At the end of the day, sticking them on the Isle of Wight or the Isle of Man is as bad as sticking them in Bournemouth. That shit cannot be allowed to happen if you ask me. If they want to find some uninhabited island around the UK and stick them on that, then I'm all for it, because you're not affecting a British citizen. But when you're sticking them on islands that have British citizens, it's just as bad as sticking them on the mainland. And says to me that Priti Patel doesn't have a fucking clue what she is doing. It continues, Priti Patel ordered officials to draw up a range of destinations off the UK mainland as she explores ways of dealing with the surge of illegal immigrants entering Britain in small boats. More than 5,000 migrants have arrived in dinghies so far this year, more than double the whole of 2019, and that number there is a complete load of bollocks. I have seen multiple times figures saying that over 5,000 people have entered the UK, and that was back in like July. So I would suggest you could either double or even triple that, and you might be closer to the numbers who have actually arrived by dinghies, and that's just the ones we know about. I expect it could be a lot higher when you factor in the people that we don't. The article continues though, a Home Office source said Ms Patel wanted the department to explore every option that can stop small boats crossing and fix the asylum system. Well, why don't you pull your finger out of your ass and actually do something about it? It's amazing how quickly Matt Hancock can pass laws limiting what we can do, but you can't send these people back. I mean, it's not like this government gives a shit about people's human rights. They're pissing all over ours every single day with these restrictions they are placing on our lives. So I definitely don't want to hear anyone in the comments going on about their human rights. What about fucking ours? The government doesn't seem to give a shit about that, and most of Parliament actually voted to continue it. So I certainly won't be listening to anyone saying that the government can't breach human rights laws. They are breaching it right now, as are most countries around the fucking world. As part of the plans, she asked officials to look at how other countries have dealt with migrants who arrive in small boats. Australia, Tunisia, Spain and the US have all used offshore locations to process asylum seekers. And yes, I fully agree with us using offshore islands, but like I said, they need to be uninhabited. We can't start fucking other British citizens over just to get them off the mainland. It continues, the Home Office has dismissed reports in the Financial Times that asylum seekers could be shipped as far as the Ascension Islands, a British overseas territory 4,000 miles away. A source said the remote volcanic island in the South Atlantic was put forward by the Foreign Office after the Home Secretary asked for a list of offshore locations, but she swiftly discounted it as implausible, because obviously it is. 4,000 miles is a bit of a logistical nightmare to carry thousands of migrants, let me tell you. More realistic locations to set up asylum detention centres are the Western Isles off the coast of Scotland, the Isle of Wight and the Isle of Man, a government source said. And once again I will say it, you cannot start sticking these people on the Isle of Wight, or the Isle of Man for that matter. That is just complete and utter lunacy. How is that going to be any different to them currently being in the United Kingdom? What about the people who fucking live there? But there are concerns within Whitehall that the plans would be opposed by Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, and island residents, it has been reported. Well, no, that has not been reported. It's kinda fucking obvious. Anyone with half a brain cell and who lives in the real world would know this from day dot. Clearly, Priti Patel and the tosspots at the Home Office don't know their arsehole from their fucking earhole. It continues, tonight the Guardian obtained documents that said Downing Street wants to send asylum seekers to Moldova, Morocco or Papua New Guinea, which is obviously just a load of bollocks. That's never going to happen. As it says here, a senior government source said no final decision has been made on destinations, but sending migrants to those countries seems highly implausible given they are foreign territories, which is kind of obvious. And now the Times reports that a favoured option on the government's list is processing migrants on disused ferries moored off the coast of Britain, which is actually probably the best idea. Grab yourself some large disused ships, process them there and send them fucking back, because at the end of the day, if they've come through Europe, Europe, they're certainly not asylum seekers, they are economic migrants. The report also says the Home Office is also considering moving asylum seekers to decommissioned oil platforms in the North Sea. However, that was deemed a no-go by ministers because of logistical and safety concerns. However, the plan to use ships is being given serious consideration by the government, because in all honesty, that is probably the best thing they can do. Yes, of course, you will have the lawyers and the Labour Party pissing and whining about it, but at the end of the day, who gives a fuck about what they say? You're running roughshod over people's lives as it is, so what the fuck does it matter if they're doing it to some migrants? Downing Street said policies from a whole host of countries were being considered. The PM spokesman said, "We are developing plans to reform our illegal migration and asylum policies so we can keep providing protection to those who need it, while preventing abuse of the system and criminality, which, as we have seen with the rise in gang-facilitated channel crossings, is a problem. As part of that work, we have been looking at what a whole host of other countries do to inform a plan for the UK. That work is ongoing." By the end of August, about 5,000 people had arrived in dinghies already. Alone, we had already covered that. That is a load of bollocks. And it finishes up there. On the 2nd of September, a daily high of 416 migrants landed in Britain in 28 boats. And what they really mean is there 416 migrants that they know about. How many when they landed scarpered, as we see almost every time. Now, I have got to say, the government really is out of touch with what they are doing here. The idea is right, but some of the places that they're even considering is just batshit fucking crazy. I will never support them sticking these people who they don't want on the mainland on some little island and making people's lives there a fucking misery, which obviously it will do when you start sticking thousands of people on an island that is not designed for it. And once again shows to me that Priti Patel's nickname is very suited. The only idea that is really acceptable in my mind is the one where they house them on ferries in the hope that they will actually speed up the processing of their claims and send them back to where they came from or to where they should have claimed asylum. Now, obviously, in principle, I agree with them doing this outside of the mainland, but they really need to consider where they are doing it. Unless we have some uninhabited islands that they are prepared to build the facilities necessary, then they cannot stick it on any of the islands where people live. You can't have people on the mainland complaining that they're doing this and then quickly change it so you stick it on some small island, and because there's not many people there, they can't really piss and complain about it or get their voices heard, because let me tell you, if you do it, I will be there to call you out.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.